Hi, and welcome to Season 2 of the Team Deakins Podcast, a collection of informal conversations between Roger and James Deakins and a guest. We never know where the conversation will take us, so listen in and see where it goes. Today we're speaking with a set decorator. Her credits include Unforgiven, The Assassination of Jesse James, and The Edge. We're pleased to welcome Janice Blackie-Goodine. Thank you for doing this.
So nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
We'd like to start with our normal question, which is, how did you get to where you are today? As a kid, were you moving things around in the house all the time to get them just right? Or is this something you found later in life?
Well, I came from a bit of a dysfunctional family. We grew up in Calgary, but my father also had farmland out in Drumheller. So my childhood was spending time in Calgary and time working on the farm, herding cows, hauling bales of hay and straw. And my mother was mentally ill. So most of my life, she was in and out of mental hospitals and committed suicide when I was 17. Yeah. And so I spent a lot of time raising my younger brothers. I became like the surrogate mother. And also when I started school, I was put in an accelerated program. And so I had half a year of grade 1, half a year of grade 2, half a year of grade 3, half a year of grade 4, and went into grade 5. So all of my school years, I was 2 years younger than everybody else and never really fit in.
Yeah.
In high school, I had a wonderful art teacher, and she really encouraged me. And she said, "What are you doing after you graduate?" And I said, "Well, I'd probably become a secretary or something." And she said, "Oh, no, you're going to art school." So she actually went to the Alberta College of Art and convinced the instructors to let me in, even though I was 16. I was the youngest art student that they'd ever accepted. And that was my happy place. So my passion was always art. I loved reading, and I loved nature. I loved being out in the prairies with the horses and cattle, and that's kind of what saved me from the tragic childhood I had.
Yeah. You never thought about working on the farm then?
No, I loved working on the farm. I really did. But it didn't feed my soul as much as art. And I was a movie buff from a little child because my mother, when she was around, did love movies. And so we were the first people on our block to actually get a television when I was 5 years old in 1955, and we were very popular with the other kids. And so I did watch a lot of shows and loved being taken away by the movies and the television.
Did you ever imagine that you would be part of that?
Never. You know, I got married very early and had my son when I was 19, and I got divorced. And then I married John Blackie, who was a art director, production designer on low-budget independent films. And he mentored me. He was the one that kind of taught me how to do sets and props on, very independent films. And when we got divorced, then I started, working on my own.
How was the film industry at that time in Canada? I mean,
in Calgary, it was very, there wasn't a lot happening. I mean, I worked for educational programming through the university. So they would do docudramas. So I would work on those. Sometimes the odd commercial, really inexpensive TV movies, things like that. My big break came when Superman 3 came to Calgary with Christopher Reeve. And the decorator that they had brought from England had to leave the show before the last 2 sets. And the production manager asked me if I would step in and take over as the set decorator. And so I was kind of thrown into this. And at the time, the union in Calgary, the film union, was male-dominated and not very happy that I got hired to be the decorator on the show. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember trying to work with these men and get them to dress the last 2 sets, and they didn't want to work with me because I was a woman. And I said to them,
Mm.
well,
Oh, wow.
you can work with me and we can do a really good job and represent the union, or you cannot work and we won't do well, and you're all going to look like idiots. So they actually worked really hard, and we got through that show. Shortly after, I thought, well, I'm going to apply for the union. So I made an appointment, and I went in to see the president of the union, sat down with him, and he said, well, what do you do for a living? And I said, well, I'm a set decorator. And he goes, I don't think there's room for women in the film industry unless you're hair, makeup, and wardrobe.
Oh
Wow.
my God.
So I said, oh, really?
Oh.
Well, I'm going to keep working in film. And thank you for your time. And I left. Phoned the production manager that I had worked with on, with Christopher Reeve. And he said, well, I've just been offered a show in Vancouver. Would you consider coming to Vancouver and work with me? And I said, well, there's nothing going on in Calgary. I'm dead broke. I've got to raise my son. Got a housekeeper nanny, flew out to Vancouver. As soon as the union heard that I was in Vancouver, they called me and they said, if you want to join the union, you have to be here tomorrow night.
Oh.
So I went into the production manager's office and I told him, he said, I'm booking your flight. So the next morning, I flew to Calgary, showed up at the union meeting with 85 men who were not happy to see me, swore to be a good union sister, and the next day flew back to Vancouver and finished the show in Vancouver. Then I had to come.
Wow.
Yeah. Then I had to come home
Yeah.
and try and find work. When
And what was the show in Vancouver then?
it was called, oh my gosh, memories. I'll have to remember that one. Sorry. I can't
no
remember.
worries, no worries.
Yeah, it
No
was
worries.
it was a TV series. Yeah.
Oh, was it Airwolf or something?
Airwolf. Sorry, it was Airwolf.
Airwolf.
Your memory's better than mine.
Yeah.
He's got it on a piece of paper in front of him.
So
I have your credentials down in front of me.
yeah. So Airwolf, and that was an interesting environment to work in too, because there were very few film people even in Vancouver at that time.
Wow, yeah. And it was the whole show male dominated as well?
It was a bit. It was. Yes. There wasn't a lot of women on the show then, especially in the art department. It was all male.
But you had a good time, did you? I mean, obviously you stayed in the industry after it, so it can't have been too bad.
I did. I did have a bit of a problem one time we were filming in, it was a big mental hospital that the government decided to abandon and put all the mental patients on the street, except for one little section where there were still some patients. And we were starting to film there, and I had to go there with my young trainee, who was a lovely young woman. And we were going through the building, trying to figure out where to store our set dressing before we had a chance to dress the sets. And I sent her down to the loading dock to wait for the 5-ton. And a few minutes later, she comes running up to me, sobbing hysterically. And I looked at her and I said, what's wrong? She said, I'm on the loading dock and the production manager comes up to me and she said he grabbed me and stuck his tongue in my mouth. Whoa. And luckily, she was a very strong young woman, so she pushed him away. And I said, you stay here. I went down and found him in the area. And I walked up to him and I said, you ever touch another woman on a film set and I hear about it, I will ruin you. I will go to the press. I'll go to the union. I will go to your wife. I will serve you your balls on a plate. And he said, I'll never touch any other women. I'll never touch any other women. And I made him promise the young woman that she would keep her job and he would not go anywhere near her. So for a while in film, it was a very male-dominated environment, and we had to stand up for ourselves and other women.
That's interesting. So originally, set decorating was a male role? I didn't realize that.
Yes. Very few women in the film industry when I started out. I mean, it was the early 60s or the early 70s, and no, there was very few women, really.
And what made you want to go into set decorating as opposed to trying to be an art director or a production designer?
I liked the physicality of set decoration. I'm a worker bee. I like physical work. And maybe it's my farming background and my dad in construction. And, and my dad used to take me to projects and he taught me how to paint walls and how to use basic tools and clean the environment. So I was comfortable doing the work. And also I think set decoration is a form of art. I use my knowledge of textiles and color and lighting to create an environment for the actors.
So can you explain to us, for someone that doesn't know what a set decorator does, for instance, what it is you do, how you start, the difference between you and a set dresser, what's your relationship with props, and all of that.
Well, when I'm offered a show and I sign on, I read the script 2 or 3 times to get the real feel of it. I do lists of everything I can envision in those environments. And then I do research, just the character development, where what country or province or state the film is, what are the professions of the people, their ages, their interests, and try and incorporate in my brain anything that would help develop those characters and make it believable. The detail is everything to me. And after I've done the research, I have a meeting with the production designer and hopefully the director and the DOP and see what their vision is also, so that we collaborate. We're a team. Then after I've done the research, I hired the crew, trying to find people that have a great work ethic, talent, are dedicated individuals to their craft, and are willing to learn, because that's a whole process. We're always learning. It's really important. And a team, work as a team, be kind to each other.
Yeah. And it must really depend what the sets are going to be, because how do you decorate a place without knowing, there's one whole wall of windows versus, there's very few windows? That would, to me, change the way I decorate a room. So you must need all of that information.
Absolutely. So look at floor plans, talk to the construction, to the lighting, paint, anything that all the other departments, collaborate with them to see what they need from me. Sound, to make sure that I decorate so that the sound is good there. And, once I kind of have a good fit with all of those people, then I try and do a budget, which is the worst part of my job. I hate doing budgets because when I'm doing my research, I'm researching what things cost. And so I try and do a very realistic budget. And there's so many times I've worked with designers and producers and directors that have no idea what things cost. And so when I hand my budget in, they usually freak out. We can't afford this. We can't afford that. And I'm like, well, if you can't afford it, you can't afford to have a good look on this show. So my job is to convince them and educate them about the costs and the availability of items and how to make it work, so that I'm producing a set that I'm going to be happy with. The actors are going to feel comfortable in and help their performance, and still somehow bring it in on budget.
Yeah, and it doesn't help too when along the way there's suddenly all these changes and, I think there should be a grandfather clock there.
Exactly.
And that's not cheap. And I think this, and suddenly, and it also, sometimes people get into individual things and don't, what you're thinking about is the whole. How would someone furnish their apartment? And if they have a grandfather clock, they probably wouldn't have something else.
Exactly.
And they're only thinking about one side of it.
Yeah, exactly. I was lucky with the people I worked with early in my career that I learned from them. And after I had gotten my union accreditation, I got a call one day from a location manager in Calgary. He said, we'd like to take you for dinner tomorrow night. There's a Western movie that's going to be filmed in Alberta. And and the production designer and the producer would like to meet up with you. Okay. So I went to dinner, and it was David Valdes, the producer, and it was Henry Bumstead, who was the production designer. I had no idea who he was at this time. And we had a lovely meeting and chatted about antiques and the Old West and my heritage as, granddaughter of settlers. And we had a it was really a nice evening. So I went home, and I thought I was being interviewed for the position of assistant decorator, that they would bring a decorator in and I would help that person out. So a week later, I get a call from a woman who was David Valdes' assistant, and she said, you've been hired. We're going to mail you a script, and congratulations. And I said, well, who's the decorator going to be? And she said, you're the decorator. I'm like, oh my God. So then I panicked because they said, we're going to set up a production office in 2 weeks. This was the first Western I had ever done. So,
Really?
yeah. Wow. So I called Linda Williams, who was my assistant at the time, and I said, oh my gosh, we've got to do some research. So we spent 2 weeks of our own time, 10 hours a day, going to the Glenboy Museum, photo archives, all the vintage bookstores we could find in Calgary, and created 2 big boxes of files of photo research on the Old West and all the books that we had, purchased ourselves. And when we set up the office, I remember Henry Bumstead coming in after he arrived. And I said, Henry, I'd just like to show you the research I've done. And he went, oh my God, that's the best research I've ever seen in my entire life. And he said, would it be okay if we put the research in the art department so all the other departments could use that research? And I said, absolutely. So that was a huge compliment to me, the fact that he appreciated the research I had done. And then, and then we had to do the budget, got that approved. And then I got to go shopping with other people's money, which was so much fun. Yeah. But
I see on one of your earlier, I see on one of your earlier credits, you had been an assistant set deck and buyer on a film called Betrayed with Costas Gavras, which must have been a wonderful experience because, he's a renowned director.
Yes, I really have been blessed with some of the directors, some of the designers I've worked with, and they were so kind, and they taught me things, about the film industry, and just being on set and watching them work and how they directed and the different designers I worked with. So you just need to absorb as much as you can, right? Working in the film industry, this is my favorite part of it. You are working with an army of talent, like every department. And the dedication and the hard work and the passion they bring to their jobs, it just feeds my soul, really.
Yeah.
But that must have given you, I was mentioning that because as a buyer, I kind of imagine that's a sort of different, it's a more kind of obviously money-orientated kind of approach. So that must have given you a bit of experience when you were doing Unbroken as to how you went about.
Yeah. Oh, no, I do. Like
Unforgiven, how you went about acquiring props for such a period piece.
Yes. And the thing is, my buyer and I, Linda, our assistant, they would give us cash. In those days, you didn't have credit cards and we didn't have cell phones either. They'd give us a roll of quarters. We'd have to find the nearest payphone. Good luck with that now. And so they give us $10,000 cash. We had fanny packs, we'd drive to all the little antique stores around, and we had a 5-ton behind us with 2 swampers, and we'd walk into these little antique shops, and we had our lists, and we'd go through the store, we'd pull items, put it by the cash, and then pay for it in cash and load up the truck and on to the next little shop. So we always had some research with us so we could confer to that and make sure we were buying the right items.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a challenge.
And also when you're decorating a character's apartment or home,
Mm-hmm.
it's very much a reflection of the character. It's not just decorating a home because you're trying to say, oh, would this person have magazines or books or whatever? So when you're making those decisions, are you also talking with the director, especially if you have some idea, oh, maybe she's into, I don't know, woodworking or something.
Yeah.
Well, that's
Do
where
you go back and forth?
Yeah, that's where the production meetings are important too, because if I have questions, usually I can ask, the director or the production designer or what would be a good fit, really. And but sometimes we're on a different path, and it's really hard sometimes to dress a set, and then of course you have to present it, and then you have to hope that what you've decorated works. And sometimes there are some changes, and you have to be able to work fast to do some changes. Really.
Right.
Yeah, you say about working fast. I mean, I read that Henry basically built the town in Unforgiven in like 30 days or something. So,
It was from.
I mean, that must have impacted how quickly you had to work.
Exactly.
Right?
Like from the time we found the location and they approved it, 43 days to filming. That's building it, painting it, decorating it, the greens department. And we weren't allowed, after the greens work was done, we weren't allowed to drive into the set. We had to take a horse and wagon because Clint didn't want to see tire. He didn't want to see tire trucks anywhere, right? So it had to be complete, or else anything that would have to be changed would be hard to get to, right? So once I had the set decorated and Clint approved it, then we didn't change anything.
Except for there's certain scenes in it where I think you must have had doubles or triples.
Oh, yes.
So how did you cope with that? Also, were there any kind of rental houses in that time?
There wasn't
in
any.
Calgary or anywhere that you could get stuff?
When I started out, there were no rental houses. So it was dealing with stores and, eventually there were rental houses in Calgary, but no, there wasn't anything then. So it was developing relationships with our vendors. And we always made sure we protected them. We got them paid on time. If there was any damages, we paid for the to buy the item out. We really were careful with how we treated all the artwork and furniture so that they would get the items back as good as they rented them to us or we purchased them. And at the end of Unforgiven, I said to David Valdes, we've had some wonderful antique dealers and I would really like to thank them. Is there a way I could bring them out to set on a day when there's no crew there and let them walk through each of these sets so they can see what they provided for us to help create this? And he said, absolutely. And I'm going to have craft servers out so you can give them coffee. And so they came out and they were so appreciative. And I dealt with them for decades, some of those vendors. And we even when we were doing modern shows, we just made sure that all of our vendors were protected. And I also made sure at the end of every film or series, I sent out thank you letters. And I had all my crew sign them, not only so that my crew could get used to thanking people, but those vendors would recognize names of these crew members. So if they were ever on a show, they would respect them and want to do business with them.
You are incredibly smart.
Oh,
you really are.
It's a philosophy, get it done, but you also want to be kind. You want to be kind. You want to treat people as you would want to be treated. And no one should ever have to ask for money that's owed them. You want to make sure they get paid, and
that's true.
They're treated with courtesy and respect.
I also wanted to ask the line sometimes between set decorator and props, which is something you personally know.
Yes.
But for instance, sometimes, yes, the actor's handling them, but whatever the item is, but it's very much a part of the look of whatever. Let's just call it an apartment or something.
Yeah.
Like cutlery or dining ware.
Yes.
If you've created a certain apartment, that apartment would never have those kind of plates, let's say. So I know that props when shooting is handling all of that.
Yeah.
But how do you work with that?
Well, I usually have meetings with the props master and have them come to my lockup, show them what the items I'm going to have on those sets, and go and ask to see what he's going to provide on those sets, so that we can collaborate, so that we're on the same page. And also what I do, because I'm married to a prop master, is on every set, I have extra stuff. So let's say we're filming in a kitchen. I'm going to make sure in those kitchen cupboards, there's dishes and cutlery and, anything that so if the director wants an actor to open a cupboard, there's stuff there. It's not going to be a bare cupboard and the prop master is going to be stressed out. They're going to have stuff they can pull to help their job too. And I think it adds to the feel of the set, and also giving them help in case they get a request for something unexpected.
And it really is. I mean, I do think that one thing that you do is you create, you actually help us know what the character is. I remember one time we were working on a film, and we had been shooting, and then we came into the character's apartment, and it struck us as completely wrong, because we knew that character up to that point.
Right.
And that's what made me realize, wow, this is so important for character.
Right. The hardest time I ever had on a show was Jesse James.
Oh, really?
When 4 days before shooting, I had Richard Hoover come to my lockup to approve all the draperies and the furniture, and he loved everything. And I was so happy. Later that day, Dean had the director come and look at his props. And as he's leaving, he walked through set deck. And Andrew was looking around at all my set dressing, and he's going, well, this is wrong, and this is wrong, and this is wrong. And I'm like, what? And he said, oh, no, it's too much color, too much texture. I want monochromatic tones. I want dark furniture, no pine, no floral fabrics. And I'm like,
oh, no.
I have racks and racks of draperies that are appropriate for the period, but they're not obviously appropriate for his vision. And Richard Hoover's brilliant man, absolutely brilliant. And I loved working up to that point with him. But I was in shock, like, oh my God, what am I going to do? So I remember going into David Valdes' office. And he was the production designer or producer. And because I worked with him on Unforgiven and he knew me, as soon as I walked in his office, he looked at me and goes, Jan, what's wrong? And I said, I've been prepping the wrong movie. He said, what do you mean? I said, Andrew was just in the set deck lobby and he's not happy with most of the stuff I've got in there. What am I going to do? And he said, sit down and just take some deep breaths. And he left the room and he came back half an hour later. And meanwhile, I'm trying to process, how am I going to change this?
Yeah.
So he came in and he said, what do you need? I said, more money. And he said, okay, you do what you have to do. So I'm running back to the lockup. I'm telling my crew, okay, all this furniture has to be stained dark. All these draperies on the racks, we're going to go and buy, cotton and muslin, and we have to teal the fabric down to make it not hot white, and minimalist decorating, really. And so my crew, we're running around calling our vendors, getting all our drapers and our upholsterers on board to help us. And it was hard to do it in a short period of time.
Yeah. I think sometimes Andrew expected you to be a mind reader.
Oh,
he
yes.
did come late on things and said, "Oh no, I wanted like this."
Exactly.
But, I probably knew better than most that he wanted something very minimal. But it was hard to understand that approach, But in the end, it's a pretty magnificent piece of set dressing, right?
Yes, yes. And I just feel bad because, that the production designer was asked to leave the show, and Patty Norris, the costumer, was asked to take over the position of production designer.
Yeah.
So that was
really everything.
That was a hard transition. Really a hard transition.
But really everything stayed in the same kind of plans and intention that Richard had designed.
The floor plans and designs were brilliant. Richard Hoover did an amazing job. But going forward, just having to do that fast change, and not just for me, but for the departments too. It was hard. It was a tough one. But
was it? I never asked you whether it was a disappointment. That the town that Richard, the art department built up in the mountains, and then basically
it's not in the movie.
Cut.
Yeah, I mean, Dean and I watched the movie last night again, and all the memories that came flooding back, and all the visuals. Yeah. It's still. In the 47 years I worked in the film industry, it's the project I'm the most proud of, visually. But a lot of that was your lighting. Like you paint with...
As you were talking about before, though, it was a collaboration.
Yeah,
really,
but you paint with light. You do. And that's what I love. I mean, the worst thing for me is working with the director of photography that overlights things. I call it flat lighting. When you walk on a set and it's flat, there's no shadows or, and no ambiance. And so whenever I walked on a set that you lit, it was bliss. It was.
You don't object when the corners of the room fall into darkness.
No, because
the work that you did.
It adds to.
Yeah.
I
know I've had conflicts with a few production designers when they haven't been able to see all their set. But, there you go.
But it was a challenging show, and just filming in Winnipeg, like taking 4 blocks of Winnipeg and turning it into the 1880s.
Right.
And working, in some of these abandoned buildings in really rough areas, and it was, they took out all the street lights and the parking meters, and they put boardwalk down and dirt. And we had hundreds of windows that we had to dress. The hardest thing was...
Yeah. How long did you have to do that?
I think we had 4 weeks, 5 weeks. But the hardest thing was when I actually saw the finished film, we only saw like 1.5 blocks.
Yeah. Well, the whole Dee's funeral was cut, wasn't it?
Yes.
Which was really shameful.
Yes.
Yeah, which was a really sort of strange scene where that sort of attempted assassination and it was just another scene I kind of miss actually because it gave so much sort of color and texture to the world that was in the film. Yeah.
And it was but looking back, I mean, it was challenging. But we got to be incredibly creative. And I had an amazing team of dressers that really faced up to the challenge. They really did an amazing job. And then Creed, like, the mountain town, all the tents and the saloons and that was a whole different environment. And in the winter.
Yeah.
Getting at
just getting there was a whole experience.
Oh my God. I remember one day where I'm following a 5-ton full of dressing and I'm in my SUV and all of a sudden the truck stops and it kind of slides back a bit, and it goes forward, slides back a bit. The ice was so bad on the road up to the location that the 5-ton couldn't get up the road. And not to mention, there's a cliff at the side of the road. And there's no cell phones. So we had to, my buyer and I had to inch our way down the hill backwards, get down to a place where we could actually phone the production office and say, we need gravel trucks. This truck is stuck on this mountain road, can't go forward, can't go back. You know, some of the dangers we were put in over the years, I look back and I think, how did I survive? Like, really?
I also look back and think, well, that's the experience I'll never forget.
Well,
if I live through it, I'll never forget
my
it.
saying used to be, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So I just, I just had to go, okay, going forward, this is, you know.
So when you've got an exterior scene and they're walking through their garden or whatever, are you responsible for what the garden looks like?
That would be the greens department, who I try and work very closely with. And I do remember on Jesse James, the scene where Brad Pitt is in the backyard cutting the heads off of the snakes. And on the Friday, we presented the house set. And Andrew went in the backyard and he goes, well, this isn't going to work. And the greens men said, what do you mean? He said, well, I want prairie grass, like long grass. This is too, you know, civilized looking, right? So this is Friday. And Jimmy Weeks, the greensman, he just went white. I'm looking at him and I said, what do you need? He said, I need crew. I said, okay, I'm going to go to the producer. And I got permission to have all my crew work all weekend. Jimmy went out to the prairies and had cut, you know, sections of prairie grass, put them on pallets, struck them back. We worked putting them all down over the lawn and fluffed the grass up and made it look like natural. And it worked out well for the scene. But you have to be able to help other departments out, and just like they would help you out.
It's funny that, because I do remember that, actually. I can't remember if I was there, but I heard about it. And I was actually amazed to get in there on the day of the shoot.
Right.
And no inkling that it was all separate sod brought in to create this kind of tall grass backyard. I mean, you know, rarely have I seen it done that well. Because, I mean, often you see a set on a movie and you see, oh, they've dressed the greens in there. Or maybe that's a plastic vine going up the side of a house where it never would, you know, sort of silly things. But that was it looked so authentic.
Oh, I'm glad, because his crew and my crew worked really hard all weekend doing that.
That's funny experiences,
There's nothing like being told at the last minute, though.
Oh,
it's one thing to be told a week ahead of time.
Exactly.
I got to ask you, you were something of a Western expert by then, because you worked on a TV series, Lonesome Dove.
Yes,
right?
I did. Lonesome Dove.
Was that a lot easier, Lonesome Dove? You usually hear that television's like fast and loose, but I should think it was easier than Jesse James in a way.
Yes, much, because you're doing traditional Westerns, right? So finding, you know, I knew what I was kind of doing to make it accurate and recreating the Old West. That's what I wanted to do. The exact, you know, and just all the detailing and how people would, even doing a general store, finding items that were period but brand new. That was the challenge.
Right.
Some of the challenges. But but
well, to that point, like say the general store in Jesse James, right, where Brad comes in and cases up the ladder. I mean, how much of that was existing? How much did you have that made? Did you have all the labels printed? I mean, how did that work?
No, we did everything. It was an empty building.
Right, but the actual
for the cans
and everything. Was that all printed?
Yeah, we color Xeroxed all the labels, and then I had my crew working on tables, gluing the labels to all the cans, and
again, that's great because it didn't feel like it had been aged because it was an old movie. It felt like, they had these things come in the week before or whatever.
Exactly. You have to create, sometimes you have to create antiques that are new. Like you have to be able to source things that are reproductions that are period. Yeah.
And how does it differ working on TV versus on movies?
To me, it doesn't. I try and decorate every set so that it feels real, depending on the budget, obviously. But I want television sets to look as good as feature films with big budgets, depending on the timelines. And
so that's a big thing.
Yes.
And do you, on the first day that they're shooting in a set, are you there on set?
Yes, I am.
And then when they continue shooting, maybe, for a couple of days, are you off doing something else once it's established?
The thing with my job is I present the set, I get it approved. I always make sure I've got a really good on-set dresser that can manage the set, and if he needs help, provide that help. And then I'm off getting the next set ready. And when that next set is approved, I'm going back and wrapping the first set. And so I'm back and forth all the time. So I don't have to be on set a lot, which is good. Because being on set, you're just sitting there waiting, and I don't handle that well. I'm a doer. I like physical work. I like to be busy. I like to be creative. I don't want to hang around on set drinking coffee. I want to be able to work.
And if they go back to a set that hadn't been, if for some reason, as we all know, schedules get weird, and they've gone on and they've shot a bunch of stuff, and then they're going back to the set, do you feel the need to be on that set, or do you feel confident that it's not going to have change? Because you never know who's been in there and who's done what.
I always go and make sure it's the way it should be before it's presented. And I'm detail oriented. No, I think that's really important. My son works in set deck too. And the way he describes it is he has little boxes in his brain, and he puts the visual of that set in a little box in his brain, and then he will bring that box out, open it up, and he can remember everything the way that set should be. And the way he got in film was for Henry Bumstead. Because
oh, really?
Yeah, he was about 21, and I went home after I'd been hired, and I said to Sean, I've been hired to do this movie with Henry Bumstead. And he goes, oh my God, Henry Bumstead. He was a huge fan of his because Vertigo was my son's favorite movie, and Henry had been the production designer.
Oh, wow.
Right.
So the next day I'm in my office and Henry comes in, and I said to Henry, my son is a huge fan of yours. And he goes, really? And I said, yes, he loves old movies, and Vertigo's his favorite movie. And he goes, oh, I'd like to meet him. So I phoned up my son and I said, Henry wants to meet you. He goes, oh my gosh. So he comes in that afternoon, goes into Henry's office, and they chat. And Sean comes out about an hour later, and the look on his face, I said, what's the matter? He said, he just hired me as his personal assistant. I said, what? So he and Henry, he would, drive Henry around, take Henry's wife shopping, take Henry to play golf, take the drawings and the floor prints from the art department to the construction. And they spent all that time together. And when Sean drove Henry to the airport for him to fly back to Los Angeles, Sean said they were both crying. So he said that was the most amazing way to start his career.
Yeah.
And he worked with me on Jesse James. He was the assistant decorator on Jesse James.
Right. Yeah, it's brilliant. Yeah.
That is great. Yeah. You also did the X-Files on TV too.
Yes, I did.
Was that fun?
It was fun. Just watching the old X-Files, getting the feel for it, having to, different sets, obviously, but that we wanted the continuity, we wanted the feel. So that was a bit of a challenge after quite a few years. But just working with Julian and, lovely woman. And her daughter actually worked in the art department. And
really?
so it was really nice to see another generation coming up through the ranks. And it was really, it was fun. It was fun to do.
You must find that there are more and more women working in the business now,
yes,
right?
especially in the union, especially in Calgary, because I realized the other day I have been a union member in the Calgary Union for 40 years now. And just to see the number of women that have come up, and not just in SETDEC, but in all, like in every department, there is more women. And I'm so proud of them for learning a craft and persevering.
I was on a set one time and I looked around and the first AD was a woman, the prop person was a woman, there was a woman in the electric department.
Yeah.
And I realized, oh my God, it's happened.
It has happened. And it's, it needed to happen. And whenever I'm crewing up, I always make sure I have a balance of men and women on my crew, because we have different perspectives, different talents, different ways of doing things. And I think it's really important is to have a team of male and female workers.
Yeah.
Have you always just worked out of Calgary?
No, I Calgary and Vancouver.
You haven't worked on like the east coast of Canada, or you haven't worked in the States?
No, I mean, except for Winnipeg when we did Jesse, going down there. And on Unforgiven, we took the last 2 sets down to California because we had a blizzard. So we had to pack up everything from Calgary, take it down, do the customs manifest, hire a crew down there, redress the bunkhouse in California. And so mainly, Canada. I know at the end of Unforgiven, Henry was trying to convince me to move to California. He said that he would, he wanted me to work there with him. And I said, I have family land, like the ranch and the farm in Drumheller. We actually used part of that, my land, to film Ned Logan's place, Morgan Freeman's character. And so my heart is in Alberta and British Columbia, where I now live.
And how is the industry? How's it changed? And is there still enough work in Calgary to support?
They get a lot of Westerns. And that was thanks to Unforgiven, because after Unforgiven, it became the place to film Westerns. They had a good crew. They had wonderful locations. It was more economical in a lot of ways to film in Canada than the U.S. So they're still doing a lot of Western and period films in Alberta.
How much prep time do you normally have, would you say, on a movie?
On a movie, it depends on the budget, but I'm probably 2 months. 2 months. 6 weeks, 2 months.
You come in after the production designer, right? So you have the opportunity to see what they've done so far, what they're thinking.
Yes. Usually they have drawings and floor plans already in place, and so I can get a feel for that. And then it's just, again, research, approval of what I want to do, budget, and then hit the ground running, pulling the decorating in.
And how much time do you leave a set standing for? I mean, it's such an interesting thing. We've been on films where they actually, pack a set and sort of take it to LA or whatever and put it in storage in case they want to reshoot. But then what do they do with the dressing?
That's the problem now, is that the last few years when I was working, it would be, okay, wrap. The next day, they're wanting you to undress the set and put everything in storage. And sometimes they even want you to sell stuff immediately. Then they might come back 2 months later and want to do some additional filming. And it's like, well, what do I do now? They don't want to pay to store a set.
Yeah.
They want to, and I think that's what I found frustrating about the film industry last years. It started to be how fast can you do it and how cheap can you do it? And a lot of the art was gone out of filmmaking to me.
Yeah.
And that was sad. And that's when I decided, I think it's time I retire.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, I'd like to ask you, I mean, going back in your career, you worked on Passchendaele.
Yeah.
Yes.
I wonder how different that was, a very different setting for a start.
It was a different setting, but it was a wonderful movie to work on. Paul Gross wrote the script in honor of his grandfather that was a First World War veteran. He produced it, helped produce it. He directed it. He starred in it. And we created the battlefield on native land outside of Calgary, building the trenches and then having water sprayed all over acres of land, creating the mud. It was physically very challenging to do. And I remember one day, we had hundreds of crew and cast, and everyone was physically and mentally exhausted. And Paul gathered everyone together and he said, I just want you to remember that at the end of the day, you get to go home and have a hot shower and a warm meal, and you get into a cozy bed. These soldiers are literally rotting in the trenches. They are wet. They are cold. They're being shot up. They're seeing their friends blown up, knowing they will never go home to their families and their loved ones. So literally the whole crew and cast, tears. And the passion that we got from him speaking to us about this, I'll never forget that.
How does it break down when you're dealing with something like, the World War I trench? How is it like art department, set dressing, or
there's a lot of rubble
props?
Too.
The bodies would be props, I would presume. How is that all integrated to make it look so real?
Well, the construction would help build, and Green's department would build the trenches with backhoes, and then we would have to go in with the wood and the old wagons and the decay, and all that stuff to create that environment. And it's just a team effort. Like, really, everybody works so hard on that, so hard in every way, shape, and form. And just, the special effects, the visuals, creating bodies, working with, you're dressing a set, you've got a body that's blown up right next to you. It affects you. You go home at the end of the day and you're emotionally drained. You really are. I remember one day they had a scene where they had a body and they wanted a rat to crawl out of the mouth of the body. So they had a rat wrangler, work to put the rat inside the body and then shoot the rat coming out of the mouth. And it was just like, that's something I'll never unsee. Like, just... So the reality of what these soldiers went through, everybody on that crew were dedicated to creating that environment. Really, it's very important to us.
The bodies actually were then set dressing as opposed to props.
They were a combination of props and set dressing. We all worked, we all worked together. So that was, and Dean, my husband, was the prop master on that show. So we were a team. But Dean and I also had an agreement that when we started working in the industry together, we'd been together 40 years, we didn't want it to interfere with our relationship. So at the end of every day, we could talk about film for 15 minutes and never on weekends.
We've never been able to work that one out.
So
we keep saying we're going to do that, and then sort of like after 5 minutes, I'm like, do you remember? What do you think about?
So when Dean he'd written a book about his career, and I'm reading his book. And I'm going, I didn't know this. Even if we're on the same movie or TV series, he's experiencing different things that I am. But we didn't share because we didn't want it to interfere.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good good advice. But we've never been able to do that. Yeah.
We're very, very boring.
24 hours for us. I'll wake up at like 2 in the morning.
Really.
No, James, I've just thought about this rig I could do. You know,
well, I would wake up at 2, but I have my notepad by my bed, and I'd write down what I wanted to. You know, I call it monkey brain.
Sadly for James, she's often my notepad.
But you're lucky, and I'm lucky with Jean that we've got it. You know, we're a team. You know, and we support each other. And no, that's really special.
And it must be great for you guys to share the same experiences, even though not exactly the same. You kind of, you know
the same people.
You know the day you
exactly.
had. You know,
and at the end of every show, then we could kind of, embrace being together and not being so stressed about the environment we're working in and being so tired. Oh my gosh, the hours. I mean, obviously, if an average day is 12 hours a day, in set deck, it's pretty well always 14 hours a day.
And I'd say average day is 12 hours.
We never had 12 hours days.
Even when you do a 10-hour day deal, work through French hours, whatever that is.
Because, I'm always preparing, and I always get to the set early. In the 45 or 46 years been working in film, maybe it's longer, I was never late. Never late. Mm-hmm. Time is money. I don't want to keep the crew waiting. I don't want to, I want to be prepared. If there's something there and you see something that has to get changed.
Very true among people who work in film. And we have a hard time dealing with people on the outside who say, oh yeah, I'll be there at 5. And then they show up at 5:15 and they don't understand why.
That's just rude.
It's a problem.
Punctuality is important.
Yeah, it is. So I got to say, I was late to set once. It's a long time ago. It was on 1984, the movie, in 1984, actually. And I was late to set, and I was kind of driving and getting really, really stressed out. And I got to the studio, and I walked onto the stage, and I thought, I'm really going to be, carpeted. Yeah. And the grips had set up the track that we'd discussed the night before. The camera was all ready.
Yeah.
The gaffer had put the lighting, as they suggested, the night before. I walked onto the camera, which was on a dolly on the rail, and the AD said, okay, let's go for a rehearsal. I mean, just exactly like that. And I did a rehearsal of the shot because I always operate, right? And nobody said a word. They never missed me. And I was, on one hand, I was glad. But on the other hand, I was really pissed because nobody missed me. I thought, I don't need to be here.
Oh, my gosh.
But I was never late again.
No, you learn. I mean, I just think it's really important to get there and be prepared. And because you never know what's going to happen, I remember one day I was working on what was the name of the movie? And it was about these 3 young boys going on they wanted to be nature photographers, and they go into a cave to photograph bears, and it's full of snakes. And so they had a snake wrangler fill the set with snakes. And I went in early. My crew and I were there at 5 a.m. So we had to change out the set into something else entirely. And I walk into the studio, and literally, the carpenters are running out of the set, screaming, there's a snake on the set. There's a snake on the set. Apparently, the snake...
Read the script.
The snake wrangler had forgotten how many snakes he brought to the set. And at the end of the night, they were filming all night, he left a snake on the set. It was a rock python or something. And I had a deadline. I have to get this set cleared off and another one built. So I walk on the set, I see the snake, I said to my crew, get me a big pail and some cloth to put on top. And I walk onto the set, and I go to reach down to pick up the snake to put it in the pail, and it opened its mouth and it latched onto my hand. So I got this snake hanging on my hand. Luckily, it didn't have fangs. It just had hundreds of little teeth. So it's holding on to my hand, and I'm on my left hand. And with my right hand, I'm trying to gently peel it off my hand so I don't hurt the snake. Put it in the pail, drop a cloth on top to calm it down. And so I'm leaving the set, and then the carpenters see me again, and they're yelling, Jenna got bit by a snake. Jenna got bit by a snake. And I said, oh, for God's sake, I'm okay. It didn't really hurt, but I'm bleeding. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I put some peroxide on. I wrap it with gauze from our first aid kit. We get the set ready. And then somebody mentioned to the production office I'd been bit by a snake. So I get this phone call saying, well, you have to go and get a tetanus shot. It's Calgary. It's the middle of winter. I find the nearest medical clinic. I walk in and I go up to the counter and they said, what are you here for? I said, a tetanus shot. Why do you have to have a tetanus shot? Well, I got bit by a snake. And I look over because I hear these gasps, and it's baby vaccination day. All these mothers with their little babies looking at me like, it's the middle of winter in Calgary. How could you possibly get bit by a snake? Right. So I got the tetanus shot in the other arm, and the tetanus shot hurt way worse than the snake bite. But if I hadn't been there early, I might not have gotten bit by a snake.
Yeah. It's not a business for everybody, is it? Let's face it.
No, it isn't.
Well put.
Yeah, some of the environments we get in and the weather conditions, and you have to be tough. Yeah. You do. You have to be tough.
Yeah. You have to be flexible, and you have to be able to laugh at it in the end.
You have to, you know?
Yeah.
If you don't have a sense of humor, you might as well.
Yeah.
Well, it's been great.
Well, thank you so much.
So much.
And again, thank you for being such a wonderful person to work with, and the art of your lighting. The everyday walking on set.
Very sweet of you to say.
No, you did. You fed my soul. I could walk in, and it would just the beauty of your lighting. Thank you. Thank you again.
I think like you, I'm just really amazed to find something in my life that I like to do that gave me real pleasure.
Yeah.
I don't think everybody finds that. So, one's got to, we're very lucky.
We're blessed to work in the film industry when we did and had the careers we had.
Yeah. Janice, thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Thank you again. It was lovely to see you.
Wish you all the best.
You too. Have a lovely day. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye now.
If you'd like to sponsor the Team Deakins podcast, let us know at pod@teamdeakins.com. Thanks for listening. If you want more information and further discussion, check out the forums at www.rogerdeakins.com. Becoming a member is free, and you can ask follow-up questions there. And be sure to subscribe to the podcast for more new questions and topics. Also, check us out on Instagram at team.deakins. See you next time.